Coming up next is cesi0 with Revenge of the Soul Stealers.
Hey everyone, I'm cesi0. Welcome to my talk, Revenge of the Soul Stealers, a dive into active crypto drainers. So just a little bit about me. By day, I'm doing purple teaming, mainly detection engineering, digging into new threats and trying to prevent them. By night, I'm usually doing some sort of research, and then all the time, friend to dogs big and small. So before we dig into it, I'd like to cover some key terms that'll get you familiar with cryptocurrency and their assets if you're not familiar. The first is called a wallet, which is where digital assets are stored. You've also got what's called a hardware wallet, which is a physical device that's intended to provide additional security features, usually by keeping your keys stored in your possession and not connected to the internet. We then have drainers or stealers, is kind of an interchangeable term, and those are pieces of software or other techniques used to compromise a user's wallet. There are a few different ways in order to import a wallet and access it. The first is what's called a seed phrase, and this is a set of words, the randomized words, and these are used to recover or import the wallet into different tools and software. You've also got your private key, which is essentially just the password that's used to protect the wallet itself. Another way of presenting the private key is called a key stored JSON, and that's basically just an encoded form of this private key. Next, we've got what are called meme coins. These have gained in popularity recently, basically just a different form of gambling. And they're a particular type of cryptocurrency asset, and a lot of them are utilizing the Ethereum, Base, or Solana blockchains. Next, we've got what are called coin socials, and these are links that can be added to a meme coin during creation that can direct to websites, Telegram channels, or X posts. We've got what are called airdrops as well. These are promotions held by projects that will be used. They're essentially free coins that are used to promote awareness of the project or to reward users for performing certain tasks. A lot of them are doing it based on referrals and the amount that you use the platform. We've got what are called bookmarklets, which are web browser bookmarks that are a little advanced. They actually contain JavaScript code. And finally, we've got what are called Discord webhooks, and those are URLs used to send information programmatically to Discord servers and individual channels. So as I started digging into meme coins about 6 to 8 months ago, I was joining some Discord servers and immediately got inundated with requests from fake administrators and moderators that were sending me DMs and friend requests. Like any smart researcher, I decided to turn off all of my permissions and basically draw them in. At the current time, I've got like 17 pending requests from all sorts of different impersonators. Over on the left, we can see a number of them that are impersonating a popular trader. We've got administrators that they're pretending to be. A lot of times they'll use similar techniques to phishing websites where they'll use extra characters, punctuation, basically, bit flipping with different characters. And then a lot of times they'll modify their profile in order to make it look like they've got particular roles or permissions. Here we've got a selection, And I'm kind of curious whether you guys would be able to distinguish between the reals and the fakes here. So it all really starts with a friend request and a DM. The impersonator will add you to a friend, or if you've got DMs open, they'll send you a DM. They will immediately start to try to build rapport with you, ask you what kind of wallets you're holding, what kind of assets you're holding, kind of how your trading is, and basically just try to befriend you. And then they will send you a link. If you look at some of the verbiage and the punctuation they're using, it tends to be non-native English speakers. And basically, it doesn't really matter what assets you hold, what wallet you're using, because they will target any of it. One of the more common techniques that they're utilizing is to send a link to an airdrop. They'll say, hey, you've got these assets. If you go to this link, and you can get free coins just by holding this particular asset. All you need to do is click on this link and claim them. Well, in order to claim your coins, all you need to do is connect your wallet. As you can see, the drainer doesn't really care what wallet you have. On the left side, we can see the extensive list of different wallets that you can connect. And they, as I said, they have an extensive list. Once you select your wallet, it will start the initialization process. However, this will immediately fail, and it will ask you to manually connect your wallet using one of a few different ways. This is when they ask you to import your seed phrase, your Keysonj JSTOR, or even your private key. By analyzing the JavaScript on the web page, we can actually see that the values submitted in the text form are submitted to the backend and not actually utilized in any connection process whatsoever. Again, this data can be used to import the target wallet and then subsequently transfer everything out. We can see on the right side that they're utilizing just simple post requests, and they will send over the data that you've entered as well as the particular wallet type that you've selected. Here we can see another conversation where I was sent a different Flare airdrop link that led me to a page with similar capabilities. The right side, the super small image, is a list of the large amount of wallets that you'd be able to connect. Now, another thing that was interesting to me was that they were also targeting hardware wallets. Now, as I mentioned, a hardware wallet is meant to deter threat actors by keeping your crypto offline, and a ledger is one of the more popular ones. However, if you're willing to give away the seed phrase for this device, what they can do is actually they can import it and all the associated private keys that are linked to that device. Once again, that connection will fail, and it'll ask for your secret phrase and then pass that data on to the server. They try to lure victims in by utilizing images that are accurate, as well as using terms like secure connection and encrypted data. Now, another interesting thing that I noticed is just in case you were having issues with the drainer connecting to your wallet, they actually have 24/7 support to assist you with this. They, in my experience, they actually respond within minutes and are very helpful to help you connect your wallet. You say, hey, I'm having an issue with this, and they'll say, no worries, you're eligible. All you need to do is manually connect. After talking to a few of them, it really became clear that many of them were international, not necessarily native English speakers. Now, another technique that I encountered was the use of JavaScript bookmarks called bookmarklets that will run code within the context of the web page that you're on. What we can see here is an actor targeting a new coin exchange by advertising advanced features that are aimed towards assisting traders with research, with tracking certain wallets, and with doing advanced filtering. Now, as I looked at the code, I immediately noticed that what they were doing is they were utilizing CSS to create elements on the page to hide the real intent, which is basically to drain your wallet. The sample code shown here initiates a withdrawal while hiding the window that usually pops up while you're doing this. We can see, that it uses CSS that's very similar to the real website, so that it really lures victims in, and unless you're really looking at it, you won't know. In the code was also the destination wallet address that they were transferring your funds out to. Due to the nature of the blockchain, all of the transactions are public and easily traceable. I was able to look at the transactions associated with this particular wallet and discovered that they had drained numerous users, totaling a few $1,000s at the time. Another thing is they will utilize Discord webhooks in order to send a message to a Discord server so that they can notify the operator that they've transferred out money, as well as the current price and how much it was. Now, let's talk briefly about meme coins. When a meme coin is made, the creator has the ability to create what are called socials. You can link to an X post, to Telegram, or to a website, and this is done in order to redirect users to a community where other people are trying to push the coin, or to show off the associated posts that was created when the coin was created. But here you can see that I discovered that a number of tokens that were related to popular streamers, and they would redirect to websites pretending to be legitimate sites. Here we can see a website that pretends to be Kick, but it has an interesting fake CAPTCHA, which, if you're familiar with the CAPTCHAs, this is slightly different. And what this does, in order to verify and proceed, is you'll need to hit your Windows R key in order to bring up a run dialog, and then paste data into that run dialog and before proceeding. Again, if we look at the code, what these sites are actually doing is they're using JavaScript to store data into your clipboard, and then when you paste it, it's usually a base64 encoded command, and it'll execute malicious commands on your system. Here we can see one of the samples that I came across was utilizing curl to download a file that looked like it ended in a JPEG extension, but when dropped to disk, they would rename it to an executable and then start that executable. And again, this is just one of the dozens of different commands that I encountered. Well, if we analyze this file using a tool called exeinfo.pe, we can see what kind of file it is and recommendations for how to unpack it. We can see this particular sample was in obfuscated.net file, and then we can load that into different programs that look at .NET assemblies. One in particular that I like to utilize is called ILSpy, and by using that, we can actually see the code itself. If we look at the code on the bottom left, we can see that it's got a whole bunch of randomly generated function names. This is used in order to obfuscate analysis and detection. However, it really doesn't deter us from looking at the underlying code itself. This particular sample had two functions that it utilized, the second of which would load data from the first function. It would then use gunzip to basically decompress the data and then load it into a memory stream. When looking at the other function, I immediately noticed a huge data array full of numbers. And at the top, we can see it's utilizing AES 256. One thing which was really nice is we can also see the key and the initialization vector used to decrypt this data. Again, it then takes that data and pushes it into a memory stream for use for the second function. By utilizing Python and its crypto libraries, we can then take that and decrypt the data itself and output it to a file for further analysis. One thing to note is that .NET, when using AES, when implementing the AES function, will use what's called cesi0 padding. And so we can also use code to deal with that. I ended up having issues with the gzip library in Python. Not a super great coder. So I turned to my trusty friend, CyberChef. CyberChef has what are called recipes, and they allow you to perform data manipulation. You can encode and decode using different functions. You can extract files. You can convert to and from things like hex or URL, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Highly recommended. I loaded up the gunzip recipe and loaded up the file that I generated from Python. As we can see from the output, I immediately noticed an executable header that starts with MZ, and it also says this program cannot be run in DOS mode. This is indicative of executable files. Well, we can then take that file, load it back up into exe-info-pe, and we can now see that it's no longer obfuscated or crypted. On the right side, we can then see all the functions that it utilizes and further analyze the code. There could be an entire talk just on doing this kind of analysis. This is called static analysis, where you're not actually running the file, but you're using tools to analyze it. Another way of analyzing a file is called dynamic analysis. And this is where you actually run the file on a system and look for changes that are made. Using a sandbox system, I loaded the file and Defender promptly deleted it. It reported the sample was infected with a tool called Pure Log Stealer. And after doing some research into this, it's a tool that is being sold to threat actors to steal data. It looks through browser data, it grabs cookies, it also looks for files on the file system that would contain sensitive information, such as a user's crypto wallet. Even with real-time protection turned off, Defender would block the file. And so I needed to go into the actions and allow the file in the system in order for me to actually run it. Utilizing Windows built-in process logging, which is not necessarily enabled by default, but you can go into your local GPO settings, and you can enable advanced process logging as well as PowerShell logging. I was able to further analyze the file. I also used a tool called Process Monitor, which is freely available from Microsoft, and this will track changes on your system. You can include and exclude certain processes, and certain operations that can assist you with analysis. When looking at this data, I was able to see that the file queried the registry for all sorts of information like the host name, the type, whether Windows Defender was enabled and had real-time protection turned on. And then it also looked for the location of the user's app data folder. It then took the file itself that was originally downloaded and copied itself to the user's roaming directory inside the app data folder. It does this because it wants to persist even if the original file is downloaded. I also noticed that it spawned a PowerShell process that would create a new entry in the user's startup so that it would run this new copied file every time the user logged in. This is a common technique that threat actors are using in order to persist across reboots and hide themselves from the original downloaded file. We can also see TCP connections. And over on the bottom right, we've got a number of connections to a host that is hosted by a provider called rdp.sh. When I looked into this, I discovered on their homepage that they are very privacy focused. However, since the particular C2 server was down at the time, it actually didn't download a second stage payload, and so I couldn't analyze that. rdp.sh has been tied to numerous threat actors. They assist with fraud. They sell illegal goods, including stolen accounts, identities, credit cards, and other malicious tools and software. It was also in the news recently because it had some of their servers seized by authorities, and there were a few notorious hacking forums that were also down at the time. Another sample I analyzed came as an encrypted Windows BAT file. And once again, it utilized some of the same techniques. It utilized AES-256 to encrypt and decrypt a large data array, which in this case was over 118,000 characters. Once again, Defender stopped it. So kudos to them. This time, it didn't detect the file itself, but it actually detected the running of the file using what's called the anti-malware scanning interface, or AMC for short. As I looked at the Procmon data, I saw that the file created a directory called Realtek Hub in order to disguise itself under the user's local data folder. It then did the same thing as the previous sampler, where it copied itself from the downloads folder into this new created folder, as well as a VBX script in order to run it. It also created a new entry in the user startup folder, much like the last one. And again, this is done in order to start every time the user logs in. This time, they created a registry item called Realtek Audio so that they kind of blend in, and if people weren't necessarily familiar with this, they just overlook it. Now, one thing that really stood out to me was this new PowerShell process reading and writing to a file consistently within the user's local temp file or temp directory. I opened this file in Notepad and immediately saw all of the keys that I'd been typing for the last number of minutes since I ran it. This is a common technique used to steal passwords, and oftentimes can be used to steal a private key since users may not necessarily have it stored on their system. Again, we can see Procmon reports TCP connections from that same process to another host on rdp.sh. Again, this server was not responding at the time, and so it didn't download anything else. This kind of became a common issue for me with analysis. Basically, all the C2 servers that I was trying to connect to had been taken down, reassigned, or categorized by various security vendors as malicious. Kudos to them, but definitely annoying for me as an analyst. We can see at the top left, they were actually utilizing what's called a Cloudflare worker, and that had actually been taken down because too many requests had gone to it. When I tried to go to one of the websites, Windows Defender came up with a big red screen that was very hard to ignore and said this site was reported as unsafe. A number of the systems were just down at the time or didn't have the associated ports open anymore. And then over on the right, we can see a listing of one of the domains where different security vendors had categorized it as either phishing, malware, or malicious in general. Now, I continued to look into some of the sites and the infrastructure that I'd seen, and utilizing different sites and tools such as VirusTotal, Domain Tools, View DNS, and URL Scan. I was able to discover previous IPs that domains had used, as well as other domains associated with this IP address. You can actually see historical data as well and their detection history. After I looked through a whole bunch of different sites, I was able to determine that this threat actor registered over a dozen different domains impersonating legitimate websites, mainly those that host live streams. We can see Twitch, Rumble, Kick, TikTok, and even a site called Strip Chat. As I was doing analysis, it became clear that similar techniques were being utilized across many of these different domains. And so I started searching for these strings. By doing that, I was able to uncover even more infrastructure associated with them. URL Scan is a tool that allows someone to scan a website and look for malicious content, but it also has really nice features like it'll show you content present on the website, as well as other resources that it will reach out to. It's also got a really nice search function that'll allow you to search for particular file types that have been seen, as well as different URLs that it's reaching out to. And then I was searching for some of the behavior utilized by the sample, in this case, downloading using curl. And I actually found a post on Malwarebytes that was describing similar malware to what I had been analyzing. It led me to a site called moscow.cc. And then when I also noticed a file that kept recurring, it was a file name called cverify.bat. And when I searched for that file name, I actually discovered a list that was used by a security vendor. It was a block list of different malware and different websites that were hosting malware. A few of the sites that kind of stood out to me were moscow.cc again, and then blackjack.lol. These will come up later as well. As I mentioned, URL Scan has an extensive search query language to assist researchers. And when I search for pages containing reference.html, as well as a research utilized for the fake captchas that included the term challenge platform, I was able to discover over 300 different URLs and over 24 websites utilizing this technique. Here we can see a number of fake sites pretending to be OnlyFans, Twitch, Kick, and then I also noticed a few sites that were trying to masquerade as sites hosting software downloads. Now, one thing that I was wondering was, is this the same threat actor or different threat actors utilizing similar techniques? Well, when I was digging into the websites, I noticed that one thing that kept showing up in the header of the websites was a number of strings, starting with data scrapbook. The data scrapbook source value was the same, as well as the timestamp across all the different websites that I encountered. When I researched what this data might be, I came across a Chrome extension, and basically that would allow you to archive web pages onto your local system so that you could use them later. Again, the scrapbook archive data contained a timestamp as well, and I figured it was highly improbable that different threat actors would be using the exact same technique and would archive the Cloudflare CAPTCHA page at the exact same time. And here we can see just a few that all contain the same strings within the header. As I was browsing some of the malicious sites, I came across a fake CAPTCHA containing the same strings that appeared that it looked like it was targeting Android users. But when I looked at the title, it mentioned checking your car's VIN and previous history of the vehicle. It came across to me that we weren't necessarily dealing with the smartest threat actors here. This site was hosting the payload slightly differently, and basically upon loading the JavaScript, it would request a page that would send the user's IP to the operator as well as copy code to the clipboard. But this time it was a JavaScript file. I started to wonder whether this threat actor was even trying. Basically, the way that they were obfuscating code was by putting in a bunch of junk characters and then just removing them using the JavaScript. On the bottom right, we can see the actual code that was decoded, and it utilizes what's known as the MS-HTML2 HTTP ActiveX function. And this was super weird because ActiveX is not supported in any major browsers. And even in Internet Explorer 11, which was end of life, I don't know, 6 years ago, you need to actually go into your settings and allow it. Further analysis of the JavaScript on the malicious sites revealed the usage of another Discord webhook, but this one was kind of interesting because it wasn't utilizing discord.com. It was on a custom domain. It would send a message to this relay, it was called DC relay, and then that would pass it on to a Discord server and notify the operator that the user pressed the Windows key, and so they were starting to go through this fake CAPTCHA process. When I searched for this URL, this domain, I discovered the main page as well as a GitHub repository for the code for the backend. It advertises itself as a safeguard for Discord webhooks, and by acting as a relay, it would protect your webhooks from spamming and unauthorized deletion. I'm not sure how, because you could still visit the website and inundate it with requests. And so we'll wait a minute as we pause the recording.